Alright, so today's project is working on the charger. We've got a, well, let's say new, remanufactured mopar steering rack to put in it, because the one in it is a little bit sloppy now. It's not leaking or anything, but actually the cat's still hot. It's got some slop in it and it's making a clunking sound too when it turns. I think I got a clip of that and put here, turning it with vice grips just to make sure it wasn't anything else. But, you know, we'd put new tie rod ends, both inner and outer, on it, so none of that took care of it, and it definitely seemed like the slop and clunk was in the rack here. So fortunately it doesn't look like it's going to be too big of a deal to get off. It's got, you know, 1, 2, 3 bolts holding it in. And then, you know, of course, just got to take off the tie rods, which I'll probably just disconnect them from the knuckles and drop the whole thing at once, and it'll be easy. He said, well, I guess if we were smart, we'd let the cat cool off, but we're not, so we'll probably end up burning ourselves trying to take that bolt off for the intermediate shaft and get those lines off. Of course, those lines bring us to the next pain, which is we need to vacuum bleed the thing with the electric power steering. So, actually I still have the cover on. I need to take the fender liner off because our steering reservoirs are right in here. So yeah, hopefully turning the wheel side to side will get most of the air out, but then my plan is I have a little mighty vac, and I bought some rubber stoppers because I couldn't get the right adapter cap for the mighty vac that was right for the reservoir here on time. So the plan is to hopefully drill a hole through one of these and put it in the lid and be able to pull a vacuum on it and hopefully get all the air out of it. And got another jug of fluid for it. So anyway, we'll get on to, I guess, separating the tie rods so that we can work on getting the rack out. Alright, well, our steering shaft here, which I don't know how well you can see because the sun went away, it's being a bit stubborn there, so we might have to just disconnect it up at the top of the column and then deal with getting that off once the rack's out. So before risking turning the wheel and messing up the clutch or anything, we did put the seat belt through it. Yeah, so it can't turn too much and bugger up the clock spring for us. So I guess we'll go ahead and have to get that other bolt out once the cat cools a little bit at the top and fight with that shaft afterwards. It was a little crusty. Alright, well, that guy's disconnected. Tie rods are disconnected at each end. So now we just gotta get the lines off up here and unbolt the rack. So I guess I should probably get a fluid or pan for fluid before I make a mess all over the floor again. Alright, here's what's probably gonna be the waterfall. There. Okay, oh good, they cracked loose. These things are not easy to get a wrench on. Probably easier to unbolt the rack and let it swing down, then unbolt those. Otherwise there's not room to turn the wrench in here. Oh, great, that one's not captive. Lovely. This one's captive. Because it's in the frame. see this being a slow, tedious process. Alright, so now with the old rack out, got the new one sitting here ready. So go ahead and take the good outer tie rod ends off of the old one and put them on the new one, and we'll may as well use the new ones that are on there. It's OE parts instead of Moogs, which at times have been questionable with me, so go ahead and get that stuff switched over. We'll tie it. I mean, I'm sure it's not going to be perfectly aligned because I'm sure there's some differences between those tie rods and the rack even, so we'll get it as close as we can, but we'll have to get it aligned afterwards for sure. Anyway, we'll switch those over. Alright, well, with the new tie rods on it, we can go ahead and put it back in the car. I took these plugs out of the new rack. I guess I'll just plop them in the old rack. Get a little heat shield on there. And also worth noting, I put new O-rings on the ends of the lines where they seal in, so hopefully won't have any leaks. So let's go ahead and get the rack in. Alright, so hopefully we can get the lines in now. Okay, those are both finger tight now. Alright, so now hopefully we just need to snug everything on up. So we'll start with these lines before they leak anything out. Alright, and I suppose it would be a good idea to get some brake parts cleaner to clean off all the fluid, that way we can tell if there are any new leaks. Alright, so the rack's all bolted in, so now we just gotta put the intermediate shaft back in, and I went ahead and put some NECs in both ends, so hopefully it won't stick on like it did before. Go. Oh, perfect. Okay, now I've got to get her lined back up with the column. Alright, so the last thing we got to do here is refill the power steering reservoir and bleed the air out of it. So this is going to be a little bit of a pain because we have to vacuum bleed it and then, you know, turn it side to side, and not a ton of room in here, so I have to like run a hose up there to fill it. That sounds like I overflowed. See how this is sort of a pain to know what exactly is going on. Have this funnel strung down there past the washer fluid so I can pour it in from up here. So right now that it's overflown, we've already made a mess. We could turn the wheel back and forth and hopefully get some of the air out of it. It'll probably lock on us. Surprised it didn't. Let's go see how we're doing over here. I think we're still pretty much brimmed. Probably gonna have to get the vacuum bleeder out now. Alright, so I got a rubber stopper and put a little hole through it, and that'll fit in top of the reservoir, and can then connect the other end of that to our little hand pump. Alright, well here's a little bit of an action shot here. So got the rubber stopper in there and just go ahead and pumping up the vacuum pump, and it's sealing good. And at first we sucked some fluid into the cup here, but I think that was probably just what was right at the bottom there, and you know, we got some bubbles coming through, so I think we definitely sucked some air out of there. So I think now we'll go ahead and turn the wheel lock to lock again and see if that gets us any more air out, and I guess we'll leave the vacuum held on it while we do that. Alright, well, doing the vacuum bleed definitely sucked some fluid down into it, so we'll fill it back up again. Alright, well, we left the vacuum pulled on it, and we turned the wheel side to side a bunch of times, started it, turned it side to side a couple more times, and checked, and I think hopefully we've about got all the air out of it. If I shut off that light, you can sort of see where all the levels, right about where that seam is in the reservoir there. See if I release the vacuum, maybe the light would stay put. If I release the vacuum, I think it'll drop down a little bit. That's right between the min and max there. Maybe we'll just add a little bit to it to be sure, but otherwise I think we are good and bled. Alright, well, car's back on the ground, and new rack and everything's in it, steering's bled, so it should be good to go. So now I just gotta take it for a ride and see if the clunk's gone, which hopefully it is, and then just gotta get it aligned. So, for now, we'll go ahead and call this good.